Hi, I'm Husnara, the editor of Chiefly Small Careers. In this short video, I'm going to be talking to Richard Hanks, who is a recruiter specialising in placing lawyers into in-house jobs. We're going to talk a little bit about the process of applying for in-house roles, because it is quite different to the way you go about finding a role in private practice. We'll also give you an update on where the market is re in-house vacancies. And then I also want to talk to Richard about the sort of common myths about getting an in-house job and what it's like working as an in-house lawyer and how that compares to what's really going on in the ground. But let me hand over to Richard first so that he can introduce himself. Richard, how are you?
Yes, I'm well, thanks, Asnara. How are you?
I'm okay. So we
Good.
recorded a similar video about God. It was right in the middle of the pandemic, wasn't it? And what a few,
Yes.
yeah, how have things been for you since we last had a chat?
Yeah, it's been varied. I guess what happened right at the start of the pandemic is that recruitment levels just dropped off a cliff immediately. Pretty much everything we were working on went on hold either immediately or within the space of 2 or 3 weeks, which was not unsurprising, but nonetheless a little concerning, obviously, when that happens. And it stayed pretty quiet for 2 or 3 months. Last summer, it started to trickle back a little bit. We started to see some of the roles that have gone on hold come back to life a little. I would say since the beginning of this year, it was almost like someone turning the lights on. It's been much busier from the word go, and has continued to have a sort of significant level of activity.
So if you're an associate or frankly a final seat trainee thinking about making a move, how should they go about it?
Come and talk to us and talk to other recruiters. I mean, firstly, thinking about final seat trainees, moving in-house at a newly qualified level is not particularly easy, simply because there aren't that many opportunities around at that level. It can be done, but it is, you do tend to have a little bit less to choose from than you might do when you're 2 or 3 years qualified. If you can't find the right role at that stage, one of the other significant things that you need to think about at that stage, if you think in-house is where you would like to see yourself going in the future, is what department you choose to qualify into, what you choose to specialise in, because that can severely impact on your prospects of moving in-house, positively or negatively. If, for example, you choose to qualify as a tax lawyer or as an environmental lawyer, there will be very, very few opportunities for you to move in-house. However, if you choose to qualify as a commercial lawyer, as I've just said, a TMT lawyer or a corporate lawyer or a finance lawyer of one sort or another, then that is likely to lead to lots of opportunities to move in-house in the future.
I agree with you about the scarcity of roles for NQs, even in a sort of buoyant jobs market. When is the ideal level to move? Or is there an ideal level?
The majority of roles probably occur between 2 to 5, 2 to 6 years qualified, something like that. You need to get to a stage where both you and the potential employer feel you have enough experience under your belt to make that transition, but not leave it so long that you might be seen as sort of too dyed in the wool as a specialist in private practice, or too expensive, or lacking the sort of in-house experience that an employer might feel you need at a more senior level. So that I would say that sort of junior to senior associate level is probably the optimum level to think about a move in-house.
And if you are a lawyer who is currently in private practice and has ambitions to move in-house at some point, how important is it to do a secondment to a client?
I traditionally focus on the financial services and professional services markets, and I would say in those markets, it's always an advantage, but it's not super important. And I think part of that is because those clients tend to quite often look for quite specialist skill sets, and if they then layer on top of that a requirement for someone to have a secondment, they might be narrowing their pool just too much.
Sure.
Whereas in some of the areas like FMCG and retail and some of the other sectors that some of my colleagues tend to specialise in, it's really important, and it's a significant advantage, and in some cases a requirement, and that clients will not consider people who don't have a secondment. Having said that, I know that engineering a secondment is not necessarily a particularly easy thing to do, particularly if you're working at a US law firm where secondments are relatively unknown.
What advice do you have for someone who's putting together a CV for an in-house role?
I don't think you need to significantly alter the CV that you might produce for a private practice role, to be honest. I think the same priorities apply. You want a well set out CV that is detailed enough but not too detailed. People sometimes get fixated with the length of their CV. I personally think that trying to cram it onto 1 or 2 pages is not necessary unless it naturally fits into that space. 3 or 4 sides is, I think, fine. Once it goes beyond that, clients just won't read it. Let's say you're a commercial lawyer and you have experience of general commercial contracts, you have some experience of technology, you have some experience of data privacy. That's brilliant. What you don't want to do is just have one block of experience, and people reading your CV have to fish around to find out where those different areas are. Set it out under individual subheadings so that both recruiters and clients who are looking for people who bring experience in 2 or 3 of 4 or 5 areas can quite easily see in your CV that's what you've got.
I agree. I think the length is less significant. It's more about the ordering and the format, using
Yes.
white space so that it's easier for the person reviewing it to pick out the salient points.
I think so. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to make it easy for people to find what they're looking for. I have a bit of a pet hate about his personal statements that say I'm a brilliant team player, yada yada yada. I just think cross that out. You don't need that. That's not going to get you an interview or a job.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not true, but let others testify to that. You don't need to put it in your CV.
What would you say are the softer sort of skills and qualities that in-house lawyers need to display?
I think the qualities you need to be able to show are fundamentally an ability to translate your legal experience and knowledge to a wide variety of different stakeholders who you might encounter in your new job working for X company. Fundamentally, you're going to be interacting with internal clients, be those sales teams, marketing teams, senior management, and you need to demonstrate an ability to talk to the common man, if you like, and put your legal advice in easy to digest and understand language, but you do need to have an ability to sort of cut through all the detail and give people the 2 or 3 salient points that are important to them, and go beyond that and take a view on things. The people you are supporting and advising don't want a list of options. They want to be told what to do. Unless you are quite a senior, seasoned practitioner in private practice, you don't really get to do that. As a junior associate, you don't get to take a view on things. And sometimes you're positively discouraged from at least presenting the client with, this is what I think we should do. You're encouraged to give the advice and over to you, client, to make the decision. So that, I think, is an important quality. The other, I would say, is resilience, robustness, being able to sort of stand your ground and know when to say no, but not just say no, try and find alternatives. And how about we approach it in this way? We can't do that, but how about we approach it like this? You have to be creative and positive.
I mentioned that we were going to talk about sort of myths and reality, and I think
yes,
that jump out when these 2 topics come up are firstly money,
and
then secondly work-life balance. And I know that your agency MRA published a report recently, or a survey,
Yes.
On millennial lawyers and what they want from their careers, and both those came up. And with regard to in-house lawyers, it was about 80% I think said work-life balance was something that they could achieve by moving in-house. But there's also a bit of a mismatch, isn't there, between being well paid and work-life balance, and how does that sort of get reconciled working in-house?
In my experience, what most lawyers are really looking for when they talk about work-life balance, as against their life as a law firm associate, is more certainty and control over what their working life is going to look like, and not necessarily much shorter hours. We quite often will work on jobs where the standard working day might be a 10 or 11-hour working day. People might start at 8:30 in the morning and go on till 6:30, 7 in the evening, which I think for the general population would still be considered a relatively long day. For private practice lawyers, a lot of them, it will seem like a dream existence. It might be an earlier start than they're used to, but it will be a significantly earlier finish than they are used to. Certainly now, our conversations when we are talking to candidates about whether or not they might be interested in a particular job we're working on, as well as who the company is, what the job involves, what the money is, where the location is, will now involve, and what are the working patterns, what's happening, are they working from home, are they going back to the office, is there a hybrid arrangement contemplated? So that is now layered into the conversations as a matter of course.
One of the reasons why some lawyers choose to go in-house is because they don't necessarily want to become a partner.
Yes.
What does your career trajectory look like as an in-house lawyer, and how easy is it to progress up the ranks?
Well, it's not easy to progress up the ranks, and I think that the private practice world is a slightly unreal world in the sense of the number of partners there are in the law firm environment, as against the number of general counsel there are in the in-house legal environment. Also, I would say that within the in-house environment, there's no sort of set trajectory to get there. There's no universal set of titles that will get you there. But the flip side of that is there are lots of different positions and titles that will represent a sense of progression and growth to you, rather than, am I a senior associate, am I a managing associate, am I a counsel? So career progression for people can take on many different forms. It can be an expansion of your legal responsibilities. It can be an expansion of your management responsibilities. It can be taking on responsibilities outside of legal. It can be taking on extra geographical responsibilities. So there's all sorts of different ways, I think, in which people can feel a sense of progression in their in-house career that don't involve becoming a general counsel. The main question we get asked about career progression in in-house is not necessarily where do I get to, but how do I get there? Because the downside of in-house compared to the law firms is progressing your career in the same organisation can often be difficult, and people more frequently, I think, move from one job to another to gain career progression than they do in private practice.
I agree. I absolutely agree with that. Brilliant. Okay, so Richard, we're out of time, I'm afraid, but it's been really interesting catching up with you again, and I'm sure we'll be recording something similar in another year's time. And apologies for the alarm that went off.
No problem.
I guess pandemic life, isn't it? So there you go.
Absolutely.
Anyway, I'll catch up with you.
We're all used to it.
Bye.
Okay, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.